Welcome to GlideChat, where we give you the rundown of all things ServiceNow. Let's talk about the now, right now.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of GlideChat. I'm Brett Karl, VP of Solution and Alliances at GlideFast, and here with me is G from 3CLogic as the VP of Alliance and Marketing. So happy to have you here, G, and thanks for joining me.
Likewise, Brett. Thanks for having me.
So let's just dive right in. For those of you who aren't familiar, could you walk us through a little bit about 3CLogic?
Yeah, I mean, through 3CLogic, we are an AI-powered contact center solution. Probably best known, among other things, for our native integration with ServiceNow.
Walk me through what significant impact that 3CLogic has with the space. So how do you actually fit in with ServiceNow? And talk to me a little bit about what's behind 3CLogic and what sparked it. Why do you exist? Walk me through the history a little bit.
Our history, I mean, our founding really started as probably one of the first cloud-hosted offerings on the public cloud, or at the time it was called public cloud. So we're actually fully hosted from day one on Amazon Web Services. That's where we started. We didn't start with hosting our own environment and then eventually moving, which is now sort of the trend for most, onto platforms like AWS and Azure and so forth. We've been there since day one. So we have humble beginnings as a cloud company from the get-go. In terms of what brought about the need for 3CLogic, why were we founded? Look, we saw an opportunity really to leverage cloud as a way to potentially offer a greater degree of flexibility for those large enterprise organizations that, for the time being, and even a vast majority of them still to this day, were stuck on on-premise environments. Nothing against on-premise, but it has its sets of limitations when it comes to being able to innovate at the rate at which technology is innovating today. Least of all, or not least of all today, obviously the obsession with artificial intelligence and everything that comes with it. It's evolved into something much more since then. We actually saw an opportunity to really reinvent how contact centers were deploying themselves. Traditionally, contact center and, let's say, CRM or system of records have been two distinct markets. But the reality is that they are two sides of the same coin, if you will, especially when you're talking about everything affecting customer experience or even employee experience. You need platforms and system of records like that of ServiceNow, whether it's their customer service management platform or IT service management or even employee workflows, to really help manage everything that it takes to resolve an issue when it comes about, right? So that's connecting the back office, the middle office, and so forth. Contact centers have always been that engagement layer. They're that point of ingestion, if you will, where typically requests come in, and of course, typically over across a number of different channels. Could be chat, could be voice, and so on and so forth. What we have found is that the fact that those markets have been kept separate from each other, typically different buying personas, different decision makers, is actually what's caused a little bit of an issue when it comes to the outcome. And that has to do with the fact that there's some overlap between these two markets, and customers have had to suffer trying to bridge the differences between the two, or overcome the fact that perhaps there are some overlapping capabilities between the different platforms they might procure from these two markets. So 3CLogic came about to sort of say, look, let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's complement the capabilities that, for example, in the case of ServiceNow, already exist. ServiceNow already has an agent workspace, already has a data model, already manages workflow when it comes to acting as a system of action for that back office and middle office that I referred to earlier, and already has digital channels native within its offering, as well as an agent workspace. So let's add contact center in a way that weaves it into the existing work streams that a customer may have already built into their investment of ServiceNow. And really what you have as an outcome is now a single unified solution without any duplication of capabilities, feature functionality, and so forth. And so the customer has the opportunity to really optimize what they can do with that solution without having to deal with all of the associated baggage that comes with trying to integrate two different platforms, which has been the traditional model when you consider contact center and let's say CXM type solutions.
That's great. No, I really appreciate that. In terms of 3CLogic, you can almost think of you guys as the, trend centers, right? Where you saw something that didn't exist, you found a need, you filled it, and then just ran with it. And you've been going for how long now? How long has 3CLogic been around?
Yeah, well over 10 years. We certainly have a deep pool of expertise in doing what we do. At this point, when you look at the challenges that most enterprise organizations are trying to solve, I don't think it's a lack of technology that's preventing us from solving them. I would argue it's how those technologies are being brought together that's probably the biggest headache that everyone is currently trying to contend with. Yes, AI has come out and it can drive an enormous amount of value. So I'm not saying we need to stop innovating. I'm just saying that when you consider the types of problems that most organizations are trying to solve for, you could probably solve most of them with what we have already. We're talking about process and how to then leverage technology to drive a better process. The reverse is true too. How can you make sure that technology or the different technology you may have to bring into the equation are not by themselves actually complicating the process? And that's sort of, to your point, where we think we have a little bit of a different perspective on how to get things done.
That's great. I heard you touch on AI there. What's 3CLogic doing around the space for AI? GlideFast investing in AI with our R&D team and our internal, external applications. ServiceNow has an AI investment. Everyone seems to have an AI play. What's 3CLogic's AI play?
Yeah, so that's a great question because it's tempting for all of us to start competing on who gets to offer what AI capabilities, right? And then the customer again finds themselves in the middle and stuck in this tug of war between the different types of things they could pick from. Our positioning on AI is there are different forms of AI, and most likely what you're going to find is over time you're going to have AIs that might end up becoming industry specific because the large language models are probably going to be different for finance and healthcare and so forth. So we'd like to stay AI agnostic so that we can have that flexibility to adopt the different types of AI that are most likely going to come about over time. When you talk about our approach to AI, let's say in the context of a GlideFast and ServiceNow, we like to stick in our swim lane. And at the same time, can we use our AI capabilities to really amplify the native AI offerings that ServiceNow brings to bear? I'll give you an example. When you think about a call, one of the most painful headaches that an agent can deal with is having to then put in their notes at the end of the call and summarize what was the outcome of the conversation and all that good stuff. We use AI to actually easily transcribe and also auto summarize that conversation. So we use generative AI to say, hey, this might have been a 1 hour conversation, but here are your cliff notes in terms of what was said, done, and promised. So that saves the agent an enormous amount of time. It's standardized the note-taking process as well for the sake of their supervisors. And we take that information, we actually push it back into ServiceNow. So ServiceNow, of course, has AI and summarization from the perspective and purview of a ticket or a case. So that conversation I alluded to may have been one exchange over the course of many exchanges, towards the goal of solving said ticket or case. So by taking our auto summarization and feeding into ServiceNow, when ServiceNow does its Gen AI auto summarization for the entire case or ticket in question, it can incorporate what we've brought into the equation alongside everything else that it might summarize. So it's really AI really complementing a larger AI model, but doing it in such a way where it's a net benefit outcome for customer.
That's awesome. I'm so happy to hear that you embraced AI. You're not threatened by it. It's going to complement your solution as opposed to replace anything. So that's awesome to hear. Talk to me a little bit about the competitive landscape. Again, you can argue that you were first to market, early to market, more, seeing that need and filling it. Why 3CLogic? Why 3CLogic over a different competitor? What separates you from the pack?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there's a couple different things. One, which I've alluded to already, which is that if you've already heavily invested in a platform like ServiceNow, whether it's for your IT help desk, your customer support team, or your employee services group, you're looking for things that are going to amplify that investment in the ServiceNow platform, not necessarily bring on a solution that could come at different stages in competition with what you've already invested in. So again, we stick to our swim lane in such a way where we want to leverage more of the ServiceNow technology stack. I gave one example in terms of how we can feed call auto summarizations into ServiceNow, but we can also take all of our call data, call transcriptions, and feed it into ServiceNow Performance Analytics. We can complement ServiceNow's evolution of its latest Now Assist capabilities. So how do you make the agent smarter, faster, and better at being able to handle incoming call requests, for example, leveraging what's within the ServiceNow stack, and then complementing, for perhaps those areas where it could stand to benefit from what we bring to the table. Why 3CLogic? Look, we've been involved in the ServiceNow ecosystem now for almost a decade. So customers want, to platform or to leverage technologies that understand the environment that they're integrating into. This isn't just, doing a CTI and a screen pop. This has to do a lot more with being able, to my earlier point, weave into the digital workflows that you've already platformed in ServiceNow and extend them out into contact center use cases without having to reinvent the wheel. So time to market is going to be faster. Your ROI is going to occur much, much sooner. Case in point, for a healthcare organization, I'll actually be speaking at Knowledge 24 here. After the implementation of 3CLogic on top of what they built with ServiceNow, their net savings was about $1.7 million. So there are measurable impacts to what we can do together, as opposed to saying, hey, I've got this amazing contact center solution, great on its own merits, but only a surface level integration with the platform that you're leveraging, in this case ServiceNow, to affect your back office and middle office work streams. So again, I think it's how we approach the merger of the two that's a differentiator to begin with. And then again, you're not going to purchase anything from 3CLogic they haven't already purchased from ServiceNow. So your dollars are going to go a lot further. And then there's the expertise and the fact that we're global. We service some of the largest global 2000 organizations across healthcare, insurance, finance, manufacturing, higher education, travel and hospitality. And again, it could be their IT service desk all the way through their customer support group. So we also have the industry expertise and the global footprint to be able to address, what most large enterprises require from a solution like ours.
It's really all about creating that seamless ecosystem, and then also that cost savings. So really appreciate that. That's awesome. It's great to hear. You touched on industries briefly. We're focused on retail at GlideFast for this month. We have other industries that we're getting into with manufacturing and healthcare, but I want to go to retail. Talk to me about 3CLogic and how you've impacted the retail space with any success stories that you might have.
Yeah, so in retail, I mean, there's a couple, whether it's managed services providers that serve the retail space or directly with customers. Some of the largest retail companies within North America and some global as well are currently leveraging 3CLogic and ServiceNow in tandem, both for their internal as well as their external, initiatives. It could be in support of their franchisees. It could be to support the IT, organization, which of course has to support everybody else. Case in point, one of the most interesting use cases that came about for one of our retail customers, they happen to be specialized in the fast food restaurant. They really wanted to be able to implement SMS on top of their ServiceNow work streams. Why? Because a lot of the employees within these different fast food locations, they're not, their job is to actually, feed individuals, not necessarily deal with technology hurdles. So one of their more interesting use cases was every now and then, apparently someone will take a car and accidentally run into the drive-through menu and take out the drive-through menu. Apparently it's frequent enough that it's a problem. It's a lot easier to take a picture and send in a text to create, a workflow within ServiceNow than it is to call and try and describe the make and model, extent of the damage, does the whole thing need to be replaced or just a part, and so on and so forth. They don't have that expertise. They can't provide that context. But a picture, if you're able to send it in and text it in, to the appropriate technician on the other end, can quickly assess the damage and sooner rather than later replace whatever needs to be replaced so that that fast food location can get back to doing what it does best. So there are different ways to affect meaningful change within the retail industry. Another example is the rewards programs. When people want to have any issues with the rewards program, or have a question or need to make a claim and things of that nature, all that gets routed so that it's the most optimal form of customer experience, because at that point that's an opportunity to affect the brand. When people call, typically it's not because they want to tell you did a great job. is typically to report that they have an issue.
Mhm.
And as much as you'd wish that there were fewer of them, that is an opportunity for you to actually take something that may have started off on a bad footing and actually turn it into a positive. Whenever I call said retail organization, they just have their act together. I trust them, and so that's why I'll continue to do business with them. So we have quite a few of shared retail organizations with that of GlideFast, where we've affected those types of use cases.
That's great. That's so interesting about the the use case of crashing into the drive-through, because it's not something you think about as being one of those common use cases, but that's it gets to that unique space in retail. So you're teaming up perfectly. I wanted to switch gears and talk about our relationship and our partnership dynamics between GlideFast and 3CLogic. So how do we work together? And can you talk about how we started? You've been in this space for quite a while with this partnership, and can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think to some extent we've grown up together, right? I mean, we were both GlideFast and 3CLogic a little bit of first to market when it came to having appreciation for the potential that is now the entire ServiceNow ecosystem. When we first started, ServiceNow was viewed only as an IT tool, right, and platform. And now it does obviously far more than that. And, whether it's in all the different industries across all the different types of SKUs, whether it's HR, source to pay, retail, and so forth. That's where we got to know each other as two organizations. But we obviously, from the get-go, saw an opportunity to take our expertise, yours in ServiceNow, ours when it comes to contact center and engagement, and bring it together so that customers, when they're trying to ultimately solve for customer experience, whether it's in the retail space or otherwise, they have your expertise and ours to basically provide them one unified solution. That has an appreciation for what both of our technologies or the technology that we represent bring to the table, and to be able to put forth a plan that is going to maximize the customer's needs, spend, budget, as well as obviously time to market when it comes to how soon are they going to get the ROI back.
Mhm.
So as much as we understand the ServiceNow platform, having been involved in it for years, we ultimately rely on GlideFast when it comes to really knowing all the ins and outs of ServiceNow, because it's such a huge platform and can do so much. And vice versa, I think your team obviously relies on ours to really become be those experts and bring that expert opinion when it comes to how do we solve for traditional contact center use cases, help desk, and so forth, but how can we do it in the context of ServiceNow? And the customers benefit from having, from our relationship and the trust that we bring together. Ultimately, they don't really, at some point, really know the difference between what's GlideFast and 3CLogic, and that's ultimately the type of partnership you want to bring to market.
Absolutely. Yeah, and it's definitely great working with you and your entire team. It's always great when our teams can collaborate on a teaming relationship and joint go-to solution for our customers. So really appreciate it. One last question I just had for you. With our relationship, what does success look like, and what are some of the best business outcomes that we've derived from our relationships, if you could think of any?
Well, I mean, one off the top of my head is I know that we both have been helping the state of Delaware, and this dates back to COVID and all the challenges that they and a lot of other
Mhm.
states suffered as a result of the impact of the pandemic. They were overrun by the amount of demand for their services, specifically within their Department of Labor. And together with GlideFast, we were able to help them address and scale the issue, bring automation as opposed to throwing people at the problem, and do so in a way that was within budget, potentially below budget, and be able to actually scale their organization to be able to take on more volume, serve more citizens without necessarily breaking the bank. And again, I think that relationship originated back to just before COVID, if not around that period, and they've been a long-standing and happy customer or joint customer of ours since. So what does success look like? Look, it's going to be a little bit different for every organization, but I think you can probably distill it down to a couple of key things. Number one, they want to be able to serve more customers faster. Everyone is obviously very focused on stretching their dollars, maybe even lowering their operational costs using automation, AI, and technology to be able to overcome what have been traditionally heavily manual forms of doing work, whether in the background or in the front office. Better insights and analytics so that the C-suite can make more intelligent, data-driven decisions, and presumably doing it in near, if not in real time. So there isn't a delay between how soon they can be proactive addressing something that is starting to become an issue for their organization and for their brand. So again, you can affect the agent experience, you can affect the C-suite and their requirements. At some point, it's going to have measurable ROI, and when it comes to dollars and cents, and ideally also all the way through to the customer satisfaction, which could be measured in the form of retention or even customer acquisition as a result of improving your overall service and reputation.
G, as always, it's great hanging out, great speaking to you. I encourage everyone that's out there listening to this episode to reach out to your GlideFast rep, reach out to your 3CLogic account executive with any questions you might have, and let's continue that conversation and get into that retail space, get into our call center and CSM solutions that we have between GlideFast and 3CLogic. And again, thank you, G, and thanks to everybody else who joined us today. Thank you.
My pleasure, Brett.
Do you have a topic in mind that you'd like to discuss? Reach out to us at glidefast.com and subscribe to our podcast for new episodes. Thanks for listening.